Say when.
So how long have we been gone?
Welcome, everyone, to the February 22nd Village Board meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Brett Howard.
Here.
Poole.
Here.
Boudreaux.
Here.
Carpenter. Here. Staton. Grenier.
Here.
Follig.
Here. Okay, we've got a lot of exciting things on tonight's agenda, so I'm going to move along. We're going to start with public appearances. Item A is a discussion with Dan Donahue and a possible action regarding a request for a liquor license. Come on up, Dan. Don't you want to bring the boss along? Why don't you both just identify yourselves for the public?
Sure. I'm Dan Donahue, co-owner of the Chocolate Caper.
I'm Elizabeth Donahue, other owner of the Chocolate Caper.
Welcome. I see that you have an interesting proposal to present.
We do. We are interested in selling wine at the Caper that's specifically paired to the chocolate that we sell. So we'd be selling a limited number of types of wine, but we'd have ones picked out for each type of chocolate that we sell. The issue we're running into is that the current ordinance prohibits 2 Class A liquor licenses within, I believe it's 1,037 feet of each other. And we are 297 feet from Quick Trip, which has a Class A malt beverage and cider license. So we're trying to figure out a way to be able to sell wine, because my understanding, well, I shouldn't speak, I don't know if it was the intent of the village to prevent this scenario when the ordinance was written. My understanding is that the intent was to prevent liquor stores from popping up all over the place and sort of having too many too close to each other. And we're in no way trying to become a liquor store. We just sort of want to supplement what we offer to our customers based on requests and what we sort of see the market looking for.
Okay, and again, is this going to be on-site or off-site, Dan?
We'd be selling on-site for off-premise consumption.
Off-premise consumption. Okay, all right. I understand that if you're correct, that if the board wants to explore this further, we would need to amend the ordinance.
I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak to
we have one here
the
tonight.
specifics of it. I mean, the 3 things that have occurred to me just...
Yeah, we have one here tonight. I have an email from him saying that's what we have to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
then there we go. I didn't know if like a variance was a variance was an option.
No, we'll have to amend the ordinance, and I can ask staff to proceed with that if the rest of the board is agreeable to that. Again, this is for, they're going to purchase this on-site and consume it off-site.
Does that mean, go ahead. After you. Does that mean you're going to sell little bottles to take off, or full-size?
They'd be full-size bottles.
Oh, they would. And off-premises does not mean like sitting down in front of the building. I mean,
No.
taking them.
No, we would not be okay with that. We would probably be asking people to move along if they were trying to do that. This is more, the main goal is people come in, very often to buy gifts from us. And so with their chocolate, they could get a bottle of wine and sort of have a gift set from one place without having to go to multiple stores.
Thank you for explaining it.
Matt, can you tell us why the village would have an ordinance like this from your experience?
Yes. The village went through a process several years ago and spent about a year on that process, evaluating and revising its alcohol beverage regulations. It sought input from the community, from the what's that name? What was that organization? The UW Law School has
Julie Sherman.
Julie Sherman's outfit, and reviewed a report that organization put together that addresses what different levels of government, all the way from the municipal level all the way up to state government, can do to address alcohol-related problems in the state, and in part what they characterize it as changing the culture in a sense. So there was a long process that the board went through. We had about a 10-page list of issues that the board discussed. One of those issues was this issue, whether or not the village should limit in some way the number of Class A licenses that would be issued in the community. Class A licenses allow the sale of alcohol for off-premises consumption, so it could be a liquor store, it could be a Quick Trip, it could be apparently a chocolate store that sells wine. So the board, after considering, well, one of the issues the board considered was this question of separation. And I think, as I recall, the discussion was focused on, the discussion was that if you at least require a certain separation, you will avoid a concentration of Class A licenses that are too close together. That was one of the approaches that was discussed, and that's what was resolved on. Now, how they actually resolved that 1,056 feet, I don't remember. Somebody might have measured something. That's pretty precise.
I can't remember that.
It's not
It's about a
1,000 feet.
quarter mile.
It's 1,056 feet. Yeah, I can't remember how that
I
was
think that
arrived at.
it was like recommended in the report or something, I remember. I think we based it
That
on
could be.
the science in the
Yeah.
report.
It
but
could be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
I think you're right.
So that's the background. Now, no one at that meeting or any of those meetings ever talked about a chocolate shop selling wine. It may be that if that had been discussed, there would have been a discussion about whether to craft some kind of language that would allow Class A licenses for certain kinds of premises that are closer than 1,056 feet than other kinds, but that never came up. If you want to do something like that, I mean, you can see how, anyone who was here for that process remembers how technical this stuff is and how you push something over here and something pops out on the other side. So if you wanted to try and, I mean, one thing you could do, well, you could leave it as it is, or you could say, we're going to get rid of that altogether. We're not going to have any separation distance anymore. Or you could say, well, we're still going to have this, but we're going to try and create some description of some kind of premises that is exempt from that. Then the challenge, then the devil's in the details, right? How do you describe that? So that's a long answer to your question.
And I'll add to that, I was here for that process, and it was a very long process. And I think the reason that wasn't included in the current ordinance is the fact that nobody ever thought to bring it up. And so, but again, getting back to the matter at hand here, are there any other questions first?
I had a question.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
Do you, so if your Class A license allows you to do 2 free wine taste samples per person, do you imagine that happening? Do you imagine opening a bottle of wine in your store and letting people have samples while they're shopping?
No, not while they're shopping. The only scenario where I could see that possibly coming up and being used would be if we had a closed event that was some sort of wine and chocolate pairing, and we did samples of the wine at that. But even that, I think, is, given our current space limitations and all the factors that go into it, and the liability, all that kind of thing, that's not our intent at this time. And just to add to that, just like Quick Trip is limited with their Class A to only malt beverages and cider, we're fine with the same limitation. We have no desire to sell hard liquor, harder alcohols or anything. I don't know how it's defined in terms of terminology, but mainly just pure wine. And then I include malt beverages because there's some chocolate wines that are malt-based. So they're not technically a wine, they're a malt beverage, but it would be limited to that.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions? Well, if the board's agreeable then, that this is something we want to pursue, I think I would like to entertain a motion that we need to amend the ordinance and refer that to staff.
Do we want to give them any direction on how to amend it?
I think the one thing is if you completely eliminate it, then when Steve's back, he's gonna say, the main reason that he proposed that, or when he brought it up, was, I think you're right, I think it was in that report, Jeannie, but also he was concerned about having another liquor store happen on the north side of the village. So if you completely remove it, he's gonna express that concern, I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever the
Yeah.
intent to remove
So I think
this.
I think Matt's idea is probably, as you try to massage this a little bit, I think that would be the answer. Maybe you leave this in, but then I'll come up with Matt's language to allow the chocolate cake.
Could it be as easy as exceptions as the board grants?
Maybe.
I just don't want it to become like this another 3-page document.
Gets to be a little challenging. If we set it up to say, never unless we say you can, that's kind of that's an unusual approach. I think the other way to think about it might be to create your own internal category that would in some way define the kinds of establishments that you think can be allowed or should be allowed at distances that are closer than 1,056 feet. And then the question is, how do you define that? Could be based on what they carry and what they sell. Could be volume of what they sell. Could be, I wouldn't say if you sell chocolate, then you can get one, because anybody can sell chocolate. You probably have to do it. I mean, if what you're saying is, but remember, this stuff is, anytime you push in on one side, you don't know what's gonna come out on the other side. So if you say, I mean, so like.
Because I'm just seeing
Like
like,
primary sales
Yeah,
are
well,
not
primary,
allowed.
that's not good enough either. I mean, I think you'd have to be, if you wanna say wine only, but now somebody could have a store that sells as much wine as they want. If you wanna say wine only, but no more than a certain amount of volume, now that's a crazy enforcement problem. I don't know who's gonna keep track of that. So, I mean, you have to think about what kind of limit, I mean, you okay with wine only? Okay with wine only, then anybody that wants to have a store and sell wine only, we could draft that. You could consider that.
I'd be interested in maybe, for the sake of the meeting, you guys just getting together and seeing what you can hammer out. For me, the spirit would be to allow the chocolate caper and stores like the chocolate caper that have similar needs to be able to participate in a Class A license. So I'd be interested to see what you could come back with that would reflect that and yet would honor the spirit of.
Would you want it as narrowly tailored as possible to allow that, but nothing else? Or would you want
no,
it?
because I can see the Peaceful Heart coming to the next meeting and saying they want to sell wine.
Yeah.
Or Jeannie's Cheese Shop.
That's a good point, Jeff.
Which I'm not like opposed to, but I'm just saying, it's sort of opening this door. And we just have to figure out how to control the door.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's precisely why it took so long to get this
Yeah.
ordinance done the first time.
Tough stuff.
Yeah, you remember that. And, I think Jeff's on to probably the best way to proceed. But staff, why don't you work with Matt and bring back something and then we can talk about it when we
Or
see
maybe
the
like a
product.
couple options or
Come up
something.
with some options, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
I'd also at that meeting, when you bring that back, I'm just wondering, is there a way that you can find the minutes?
Yeah.
When we discuss this?
Sure.
So we can kind of reference that
Yep.
and refresh our memories as to why we did what we did, maybe able to say something in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can probably find not only the minutes, but that big
That-
outline that
that
we
report,
had, that
right.
had all the different items, you went through and checked them off, and we can find a bunch of stuff.
Do we need a motion to direct staff to do this? No? Okay. So everybody good with this?
Are you
Okay.
guys okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that sounds perfect.
All right, thanks for coming down to see us tonight.
Oh, thank
And
you for taking the
staff
time.
will be in touch with you to let you know how this progresses through the process.
All
Thank you
right,
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
I move on to item B, and that's another exciting project in the works. And if the board is wondering why they didn't know about this before, I think it's only been incubating for about 2 weeks, as I learned today. And we've got a couple people who are not strangers here, Jeff Bernier and Mark Mortensen.
Yay, handouts.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, while Jeff's passing that out, I guess most everybody is familiar with the area we're talking about, but just a little history and how we came about. I'll get up to about the next 2 weeks and then let Jeff take over. But
Would you
over-
excuse me for a second? Would you tell everyone in the public where you're thinking about doing your project?
Okay, the area is everything behind Main Street to the railroad tracks back to UW Health property, that whole area in there. And over the years, there have been 2 or 3 projects, I think, at least, Mike, maybe more, that have come to the board in conceptual stages that would basically increase parking, add retail and housing space to that area. None of them have really got very far, I don't think, for various reasons. Over the last number of years, PLH, Paul Lynch, has been acquiring all that property in the area, and he has now acquired all of that property that you see, kind of see underlying the plans there. It was right about 2 weeks ago, I guess, that Jeff and Paul had a conversation, and he was willing to part with that property, sell that property. And that's kind of where we got involved, and from there, Jeff met with some of the staff, and he can take over that part of the conversation.
Yeah, after Paul agreed to let us develop this project, I called up the village staff and got on the staff meeting and talked to Mike Slavny and Jeff and Mike, and kind of went through the plans, kind of looked at the different scenarios, and with the village going through with their whole campus planning and the whole downtown redesign for that. I was talking with Mike Slavny and, potentially what this property could be used for in the future and all that stuff. And it came up, and I had thought about it earlier is, what's the best use for this property? Well, right now you'd have to build it as first floor commercial, second, third, fourth floor residential, because that's what the code says for downtown. And at the meeting too, it was pretty much noted that 16,000 square feet of commercial would pretty much drown downtown in its commercial space. If we were to build that right away, it would take years to rent up and all that stuff. And then Mike Slavny said that they did a study a few years ago too, that one of the best scenarios here would be to potentially have a senior center on the first floor. So I got some direction from those guys. We went through the new village plan. The new village plan says about 15 to 16,000 square feet. It works out pretty well with that. If you did, underground parking, 16,000 square foot first floor, and 3 stories of residential on top, which adds up to about 42 units, it fits on the site very well. Then, by redesigning the parking lot, relocating the building along Jefferson Street, and then using the existing village lot and the rest of our property, a couple of the things that they wanted to see was a direct route into the UW, which we provided a drop-off for the senior center, and additional outside door parking. So we picked up about 80 stalls behind the main businesses on Main Street there. So I think we're up to 107 stalls, and I think the existing parking lot's like 24, 25, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And I took some liberties on the plan too, and on the UW lot, right now they just have a long driveway that goes in, and with some negotiation with UW, I know they've been in the past, they've been reluctant, but maybe with the right, I added another 37 stalls on their property because of the extra width that's, that they have that they don't really use except for their split rail fence. So with that said, if we were to, and then the one thing at the meeting with staff was, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. So that's why I came up with the most parking that we could come up with in the biggest building to come up with, and then we're gonna work back from there. So we have a lot of questions, and the staff had questions too, how this is all gonna work in with the campus planning. And that's why we're here, so.
That's kind of where we have taken over since those meetings. We've talked to some different people that would be interested in working with us on this project. We've come up with some very, very, very preliminary numbers in terms of what it would take. And I guess now we're kind of looking for the commitment and or agreements, tentative agreements from the village to give us direction of which way they want to go. If this is something that the village is truly interested in doing and fits within their plans, we're willing to take the next step and get the investor group together, and we've already have a commitment more or less for financing the project based on our assumptions, one of which is that the lower level would either be sold to the village or leased to the village or a lease to own to the village. Again, 3 scenarios. We don't know which direction the village wants to go, but it impacts our next step, which obviously is TIF funds for the parking lot, for the infrastructure and things like that. We're looking at probably a $4 million, again, really rough number, $4 million increment, maybe $350 or $3,500,000 or $3 million increment. Should we take away the lower unit, if the village buys that outright? Again, we'd be looking at TIF money for the remainder, to cover that for the remainder of the life through 2032, I think, the TIF is there.
And at the staff meeting too, some questions were brought up about the parking lot. What do we do? And we're willing to work. I mean, that's why we're here, to make sure everybody understands what's going on. I mean, if we buy the property, put in the parking lot, give it to the village maintains it, we just keep the building and we have a use agreement with the parking lot, that's one way to go. The other way to go is you guys keep your part, we keep our part, we do whatever. I mean, that's the 2 different ends. We could meet in the middle or we could do whatever. But, Mark and I have been around town for our whole lives, and this area has always been congested. It's always been hard to get at. This would clean up downtown. This is the last phase for downtown. If we put this in, it's going to increase the parking. You're going to have another 100 people downtown that eat, downtown, shop downtown, and it's just going to increase the traffic flow completely.
So really, what we're asking the village for is to kind of answer some of those questions and let us know if you want to go on and give us some templates to work with. Do you want to buy it or lease it? What kind of terms are you looking at? What do you want to do with the parking area? Does the village want to buy the parking area? Do you want to long-term lease it? Again, you need to tell us. I don't think we're prepared, or I don't think we want to go through the process of writing these agreements, taking view. Oh no, that's not what we want. Jeff and I have been around too long to know. You're going to have differences of opinion. You're going to have to come to some sort of consensus of what you want to do. If that consensus is, for example, you don't want to provide any TIP dollars to a project like this, you can tell us that right away and it won't work. Because obviously, without some sort of public support, I think Slavny's have told us also that, commercial retail down there by itself isn't going to work, and it won't be feasible to do a project like that. So I don't think you'll see that without, again, support. What kind of payback do you want on the TIF? Are you looking for it up front, or pay as you go? One of the, our first options, obviously, to get it up front. It makes things easier for us. However, if, for example, the village is going to purchase the lower level for the senior center, okay, now maybe there's give and take that way. Now we don't need, the same amount of TIF funds, for example, up front, but we can do a portion up front, some pay as you go. So there's all different kind of options. But really, we need to, I guess we're asking you, we're going to be the point people here. We, financially, we're comfortable with the project. whether it ends up being Jeff and I, or whether it ends up being, there ends up being others involved. I mean, kind of depends on the answers we get from you guys. None of these points, lease, the purchase, those things, when we get into it, I see as insurmountable. It's just a matter of working together, and we're asking you guys for the starting point and asking you guys whether you're interested in the project.
Okay. So basically what I understand is that you're looking for a preliminary thumbs up or thumbs down on this project right now.
Well, more than that, if we want to go,
I think there's needs to be
I mean,
discussion
tonight.
with the village, with the urban planning, with the downtown campus planning and the senior center, and to see if that's something, you know, I've had some conversations with the senior center on it. You know, is that something they want to do for sure, and is that something the village want to go, you know,
Right.
do?
Right. And the timing is excellent for a project like this.
Right.
And,
And,
again, tonight, for the board, are you looking, what I understand is you're looking for kind of a thumbs up on the project or a thumbs down on the project?
to start working with the village.
Yeah.
With the
Staff.
planners and staff, yeah.
right,
And-
but I think beyond that, the board needs to give, whether it's Mike, Matt, Jeff, some direction, Allison, some direction on which way to go to answer those questions, because those, again, are significant to the project. You know, do you want to buy it or lease it? You know, are TIF funds available? What TIF funds are available?
Yeah, well, you know, if the board decides to turn this over to staff for further exploration, shall we say, then those are the questions they'll be approaching you with. You know, they'll be communicating with you folks, and then the way I see it, they'll be reporting back to the board. But does anybody on the board have any questions for Jeff or Mark while they're here?
I've got one,
Go ahead.
and I don't know if this is pertinent now or not, but the train tracks, do you think there's ever gonna be a time when there'll be commuter rail on that track? And the reason why I'm asking to see if there was any kind of a place to do like a depot in this project, or am I just way out of line?
This one is kind of, it's not, we looked at that on the original plan. I had an area way in the back by UW, but there's a really big grade change in there.
Okay.
And that's, you know, it 20 feet some areas and it goes down to 10 feet. So it would be difficult to get an accessible path up to there.
Okay.
I mean, we looked at that, we talked about it at staff, and you know, we go from a bridge down, you know, it would be better down farther, actually past UW onto the next couple, 3 properties. That's where it starts leveling out, and that would be a perfect location for, you know.
Something like that, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Eric, in the TIF 3 planning document, there's a depot identified, but it's someplace on Market Street, because we
Oh.
look for a level place to put it. Most likely the TIF is gonna expire before commuter rails here.
Okay.
I guess, just a guess.
But, I mean, there's some potential
Good point.
development down the street farther, you know, to the south that could happen, and there's some nice locations down there for it to happen within walking distance of downtown, that's for sure.
How many years are left on that TIF, Mike?
Pardon?
How many years are left on the TIF?
2032, like Mark said, yeah.
2032? Okay, all right.
So, yeah, and then, I mean, that's one of the reasons we got with Paul, we wanted to jump on this before the TIF got down there where there wasn't any potential money. You know, I know there's not any money hardly in there, but, you know, we're open to talking about anything. I mean,
Right.
if the senior center wants to move there, if we bond it out, you know, we can do government bonds, or we can finance it ourselves or through the bank, and then we can work on the deals. It's just a matter of which way to go and how to write it up. And you guys, I attached a couple pictures of a building up in Madison. I was kind of, you know, looking at when we were researching the project, and that's kind of what we envisioned down there.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what Middleton did a number of years back with their downtown. And that was a really nice redevelopment that they did there, and that would fit perfectly in there, but we'll leave that to staff to determine in the future. But any other questions for the gentleman here?
Yeah, your marketing target is the senior population, is that right?
No, it's you know, if the senior center goes on the first floor, there'll be 42 units upstairs, be efficiency, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. It would be convenient for seniors to live there because they could go down for the lunches that they serve and for the activities, but I don't think right now we're gonna regulate it.
If it was marketed to maybe higher income people, would that affect the commercial space prospects at all downstairs?
No, I mean, according to Mike Slavny and Vanderwall, he said, it would just take too long to lease up to make it profitable.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then, if the board concurs, I think we want to turn this project over to the staff and have them interact with the principals here and continue working on the details, and especially locating the senior center there. Because it sounds like, will that project happen with or without the senior center?
Probably not.
Probably not. So, okay, so I guess we'll be looking to see if that's feasible?
Yeah.
Getting the senior center included there?
But again, we're talking senior center. It won't happen without some public-private partnership, I don't think. I mean, it could be the library, for example, or it could be the village offices, but I don't, again, because the commercials, there isn't the value in the commercial space to support that project. That, I just don't see it happening, relying on commercial retail or that size of commercial retail.
And the other thing is, Mike Slavny said at the meeting, is the use for daytime use for the senior center is perfect for down there. If you were to do a high flow commercial, there wouldn't be enough parking even with the extra parking. So it's kind of like an off-on use time, during the day when it's not as busy, they would be using it, and then at night when it is busy down there, then everybody else would be using the parking lot, so it fits in perfectly.
I'm sure there'll be more questions as we progress here, assuming the staff finds it viable.
Yep.
Anything else, Mike?
No.
Would you like a motion for this?
No, we're fine
Okay,
with it.
and the board is good to proceed then?
That is really exciting. Thanks for
Yeah,
bringing this to
it
us.
is.
Great project, good idea.
Yeah,
Thanks.
very opportune. We'll move on to item C then, and with us tonight, we have Mr. Tim Trimble, who has another exciting project to present. And everyone, I think, is familiar with the former Methodist Church property that's up on the hill on North Main Street. And he's got a project that he wants to introduce, and I'll let him proceed. Again, this is Tim Trimble.
Yep, I'm with the LaSalle Group. We're one of the developing partners of the project. Want to thank you for the opportunity to come tonight. We've met with staff on a couple of occasions. We had a neighborhood meeting a few weeks ago where we had good discussion with neighbors on the project and kind of our concept. We had some good ideas that came back that we put into the design and development of it. What we're targeting the project for is a assisted living only, going for the low and moderate income seniors in the community. And to make that project work, typical financing and investor returns won't work because the reimbursement rates for the residents don't come into market rate. 60% of our residents will probably be Medicaid reimbursement, which means their incomes are at 30% of the average median income. The remaining 40% will probably be somewhere in the 60% or less of average median income. So in order to make these projects work, there's two mechanisms that we've found to be able to do that. One, if your site is located in a qualified census tract, which is a HUD or government definition, then we can issue bonds, we get tax credits, and they give us a 30% premium on the tax credits so we can raise more equity to bring in. If it's the right site and the demographics and the construction and design work, you really don't need any more than the tax exempt bonds and the tax credits in that scenario to make the project work. If your site is not in a qualified census tract, which in this case our site is not, then you don't get the 30% premium for the tax credits. You come up with a gap or a shortage. So in our conversations with staff, we said we'd like to ask the city to help with tax increment. In our case, pay-as-you-go would work quite well. The financing people will just layer that into the debt and either put a second piece of debt that matches the term of the tax increment or the increase in mortgage amount in some fashion. So with that, that makes up the difference, and we're able to deliver a quality residential environment serving, again, seniors who need assisted living, which will include full meals, we'll have activities, there's age, healthcare services delivered on site. So we've done some preliminary market research, says we're in the right spot, and there's plenty of need for that, so we're excited about the possibility of being able to bring that to Oregon. And I said, we've had really good conversation with staff, we had a great meeting with the neighbors, and I know there's been other folks looked at this site with similar designs to do a senior project. Our group, we have a project right now in West St. Paul that's under construction under this very same model. That one is a little larger, it's 164 units. That one had some memory care. Here we're just doing assisted living only. So our hope was that the village would want to get behind it and help us with this, and let us take it to your financial consultants so that they can run their analysis and come back and prove that the need is there.
Thanks, Tim. And again, I think what Tim is asking for, that the board approve turning this project back to staff once again, so that they can take it to our, Mr. Harrigan, our TIF expert, for a TIF analysis to see if it's feasible. And again, I prefer, it's tax incentive financing, but I like to look at it as an advance, because the village, whenever we TIF something, we get the money back eventually. So, also, it'll be going down a dual track where planning would be looking at it also, as I understand it. Is that correct, Mike?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, so, again, it's gonna be turning it over to Mike Harrigan and, starting it off in planning. Are there any questions for Tim?
And Tim's firm has agreed to pay for the TIF analysis. the
Oh,
board should know.
okay, that's even better. I
Usually
guess
don't get any argument on that one.
Yeah.
I guess we'll do it then. No. Any questions from the board? No? Okay. Do we need a motion for this, Mike?
I don't think so. No.
No? Okay. This is easy so far. We haven't had to do anything except nod our heads, so I like that. Well, Tim, thanks for presenting that tonight. We look forward to seeing you in the future as this progresses.
Yeah.
And thanks for bringing us
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
this exciting project.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, village attorney and the village administrator's report. And item A is a discussion and possible action regarding hiring an appraiser for possibly acquiring an option on the Oregon Bowl for possible use as part of the civic campus. Who would like to take
You want to go
this?
this way? Go ahead, you did all the work on it.
Okay. We obtained 2 proposals from appraisers, both of which are qualified to do the job, to give the village an appraisal of the value of just a straight real estate appraisal, the value of the property that the bowling alley property is on. As I understand, we did touch bases with Jack Hendrickson.
Yep.
To let him know that the board is considering taking this next step, and I think Mike talked to him.
I did.
And he said,
He was fine with it.
yeah,
Yep.
let's keep going. And so, the proposals are from, one is from a firm in Janesville called Dusterbeck and Associates. I've been working with Lori Maldonis there for a number of years, and some other folks in her firm. I believe her proposal is $2,500. Is that right? Let's see that.
22.
Oh, $2,250 to be completed within 30 days of engagement. The other appraiser is a fellow named Andrew Bussin. Andrew, I haven't worked with him personally, but one of my, Amy Trupke, you know Amy, because she's done work for you, has used him and said he does good work. His proposal was $4,000 with a 3-week turnaround from the time engaged. My expectation is that, again, either would do a professional job, and you simply need to select one if you want to keep going with this process. so that we can get them started and bring that information back to you.
Are the costs the same from either appraiser?
No.
Are they different?
Well, one's $4,000 and the other is
The costs are
$2,250.
the costs are the costs are different. 2250 versus 4,000.
Why would we take the most expensive one?
We just have to make a motion to
Yeah,
accept
it makes-
one.
Just have to pick one.
Yep, just pick one.
The only difference between the two that really jumps out is Andy Bussin says he'll get his work done in
Yeah.
3 weeks, and the other says 30 days. So if you're in a real hurry.
I told Jack when I spoke to him, I said, it's probably gonna be 30 days plus before we got it back, and he was fine with it, so I don't think that should be too big of a deal.
Right.
So
Well, I
I'd
think-
make a motion to accept the quote from Lori Maldonis for $2,250.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further questions on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Go ahead, Mike. Next on the agenda is are the planning motions, so I'm gonna turn it over to Jeannie to present the planning motions from the last meeting, February 4th meeting.
All right. So we are moving, we're jumping to number 10 on the agenda. And the first item under there is discussion of possible action regarding a conditional use permit for a banquet facility at 155 Run Road. Crystal Zuniga. And Crystal is here. So I would make a motion that we approve resolution 1602 relating to an application for conditional use permit for 155 Run Road.
Second.
So, for discussion, Crystal, would you mind coming up and just maybe explaining to the board? Crystal has, appeared, been very patient and has appeared numerous times in front of the planning commission, because we've had lots of questions. And she's gotten all of her materials together, and, the planning commission approved this unanimously, but this is probably the first time the board has seen it, so if you just wanna maybe explain a little bit about what you're planning.
I think I was here maybe back in December, so I went over it a little bit then, but more has kind of come together since then because it's been a kind of a learning process for myself as well. So my hope is to utilize the building to open a banquet facility. We've determined that the capacity of the building would be able to host about 250 people. So we would use the building to host wedding receptions, anniversary parties, birthday parties, events such as that. It'd be a location where they would be allowed to bring on their own caterer. They'd have their option of using caterers, where a lot of places you have to use on-site catering, stuff like that. So that's kind of the goal with it. Have lots of fun parties. Does anybody have any questions?
So the food would be brought in then?
Yeah, I've actually talked to, like, for example, I spoke with J.L. Richards last week, and kind of working through the details of maybe offering, you know, having the ability to offer the customers certain caterers, kind of expand on the whole planning experience and assist them in the planning if they don't know, if they come in and say, okay, well, we'd like to rent the facility, but we don't know who to use as caterers. Maybe, for example, they'd be my premier caterer, or I would find some other caterers in the area that would also be willing to do that. I know that there's some more in Madison, but I think locally here, J.L. Richards, just because I have a good relationship with them and they catered my wedding and stuff like that, so I feel like I'd like to kind of push them out in the front light a little bit more. But, yeah, they'd be able to kind of pick their caterers that they brought in.
Just for the board, one of the things that we were a little bit concerned about were the hours of the facility. So in the conditional use permit, you'll see that the facility will be open from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. and then folks renting will have another hour to clean up. So the longest any folks will be there will be 2 a.m. That's just something that we were a little concerned about. We didn't want things going there all night long.
Right.
Crystal was fine with that.
Yeah, and my husband and myself, we've discussed this a little bit too, as far as putting, say, a maximum limit, like an 8-hour max. So if it's a reception that's gonna start at 2 in the afternoon, we're not gonna let them, in our contract, we're gonna say, okay, it's gonna be 8 hours. We're not gonna let them go until 1 in the morning because you're just gonna draw it out. So we're gonna put our own personal limitations there. I just wanted to kind of have that maximum hours availability to play with in the event that somebody's, you know, getting married later in the day or earlier in the afternoon.
Any other questions from the board?
Has the fire department's concerns been addressed?
I believe so, yes.
They did an inspection, and checked it over. It's not in my initial intent for my lease, but if you're familiar with the building, there's 2 additional racquetball rooms, that we had thought maybe at some point I would add on to my lease and be able to utilize for, an additional birthday party or a smaller party that's going on. But they said that we would be required to add an extra exit to the building, for safety, safety reasons, which the owners of the building are willing to do. So I'm sure at some point in the near future, we would have that added in. But initially, we would just use those rooms for storage of things, so.
If I may, one thing that I'd like us to consider is, we just had a big party here downtown, where it required extra resources from us, so you guys might want to consider putting on in the permit, if there are 150 or more people, that the police department is notified, so we can make sure that we're properly staffed in case things were to go wrong.
Oh, absolutely. So it'd just be more me communicating to you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Just letting us know so we can have the staff here.
Because I know I've checked into a couple of companies, and I know, and Candy's not here, I had forwarded Candy just a sample, and it was a few years old. It was a sample of a contract from the Fitchburg Community Center, which is where I was married, and kind of what they do, and that's where we came up with the stipulation that if we're going to have an event that's going to serve any beer or wine, then, after a set amount of time, later in the evening, or after the dinner hour, they have a security guard on the premise just to make sure that the peace is kept. So that would be provided, and a staff person, so we would have that person there.
Great idea.
As well as to, go outside and make sure people aren't walking outside or smoking issues or parking issues, just to kind of have everything in order, so.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Chief, are you saying then you'd like that the fact documented that Crystal will contact you with
Yes.
projected numbers for
Okay.
events? Go ahead, Matt.
Yep, and if the board would like to do that, what we would do is modify the conditional use permit to provide for that. So I'm gonna take notes here, and so, do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna take notes, and then when the discussion gets closer to the end, I'm gonna suggest an amendment that would address these things.
Okay.
I think Jeff had some.
Yeah, I just have one item just to clarify under the agreement, item number 4, said property should not, or all uses occurring on the property should not exceed 250 persons. I think we need to just amend that. What came out of the Plan Commission from Mike Slavny was that the occupancy of your event would not exceed 250 people, and that did not include your staff.
Right.
And then we also want to be very clear that it doesn't include, that 250 is not a combined between the
Soccer
facility and the rest. So just want to make sure, that was the original.
That's a good catch.
I think that's correct, isn't
Yeah,
it,
that
Jeannie?
sounds right.
Yep.
250.
Okay, so couldn't that be expressed by, rather than event-specific, isn't there a banquet room? Can't we just?
Well, I think we just say, I thought we had it listed as occupancy for the, I'd say for the, what are we calling it?
There's a map.
Facility.
There's a
No,
diagram.
but for the,
Do you have a name yet,
Banquet
Crystal?
facility.
for the banquet facility.
Yeah, we're
you know,
leaning towards celebrations,
Yeah.
banquet hall, so.
Yeah, just on that, occupancy for the banquet facility limited to 250 attendees. Isn't that-
250 guests.
250
Yes,
guests.
invited
250
guests.
guest limit
Guests
for a banquet
plus-
facility.
Plus staff.
I think per parking, the number was like 261, and so we said
That gave you
250,
the-
and that allowed us for security and staff. A little bit of a space there.
Okay.
So, Matt, I'm wondering, there's a section, section 8 of the agreement that states that the applicant agrees to comply with any other requirements imposed by the village or any other agencies. I'm wondering how much of what we're discussing would be covered by that section.
I interpret that to mean imposed by, say, ordinance or in some other formal way. If, I don't interpret that to mean that, like, for example, next week, Chief Yule could decide, oh, I think anytime you have more than 50 people over there, I want you to call me first. I don't think we can do it that way. So if there is a requirement that you think ought to be addressed in the conditional use permit, let's put it in.
So in other words, specify.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm making notes here.
Because a couple of years from now,
This is easier for everybody to
Yeah.
refer back to it, yeah.
I'd agree. So so far, we've got 2 amendments, right?
Yep.
Any other amendments anyone can think of? Board, any other amendments you'd like to see? Okay, we've already approved the document, the conditional use permit, so I didn't.
No, there's a motion on the floor, Jerry, that's.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
So we haven't voted on it yet?
No vote.
Right.
Nope.
Okay, so we'll approve this and then come back and do the amendment, right?
Well, I actually think you should do the amendment first.
Okay.
It would be to amend the motion to make 2 changes to the agreement. One requiring prior notice to the police department of events of 150 people or more. And the other to modify paragraph 4 to specify that it is a 250 guest limit for the banquet facility plus staff.
Okay. Don't we have to remove the motion from the floor first?
Nope.
No?
This would be an amendment to that motion, and then if
Okay.
this is adopted, we'll go back to that main motion, the original motion.
Sounds fine to me. Would someone like to make that motion, please?
So I'll make the amended motion as Matt outlined.
Okay, could I please have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And now we come back and
Do
do
the main motion.
Now it's, do you want to approve the resolution as you've just amended it?
Yep. So, we have a motion on the floor?
And I'll second.
You second it?
Yep.
Okay. Any further questions on this? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Crystal, thank you for your
Thank you.
time tonight.
And then I have one other question, which
Sure.
I think now, speaking with Candy, we said when we got to this point, as far as, and I think we talked about this a little bit with the attorney, and we were gonna try to clarify as far as caterers bringing in beer, not alcohol, but beer or wine for the events, or myself being licensed, or what would the next step be for that?
So, first, it looks like there really isn't anything in the CUP that addresses alcohol. I took a peek through there. I think there were some placeholders for the possibility of doing that in an earlier draft, but the Plan Commission apparently decided not necessary.
It's true, you're right, that was
Yep.
in there, yeah.
So, the alcohol beverage laws are complicated.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So at the planning
You're-
commission, we recommended that Crystal apply for a liquor license, and then that come before the board. Planning commission didn't want to deal with that, because it's a board decision.
Yep.
So I think that's her next step, isn't it, to apply for a liquor license?
Well, she needs to decide, and probably in consultation with your clerk's office, what does she want to do, and then what does she need to do that?
Okay.
And frankly, I just don't know for certain what the best approach would be for you, depending on what you want to do. The answer might be different. So you, for example, maybe you decide that you need to apply for and obtain a Class B license. Maybe. Maybe not. I'm not sure. It's complicated. So I think you should meet with the clerk, and I'd be happy to help if
Okay.
the village staff sort through options based on what you want to do.
Okay.
There's lots of different options.
And when I started this whole process, this was my main reason, my main visit to the village was to ask the questions about this. So the conditional use permit was a completely separate
Yeah.
journey I've gone on. So yeah, I can go to that and meet with that. And I think the one that I sent to Candy, for an example, I think they used a picnic class, something like that. But like that Fitchburg Community Center they're connected to their hall, and they issue those as they book their parties, which I don't think would be the right fit
That may not work for you.
for us. But yeah, so okay,
So, yeah, meet with the clerk's office.
will do.
She'll probably call me. Somebody will call me.
Okay. So the conditional use permit's approved though.
Yes,
Yes.
you're done with that.
One down.
Hey, Crystal, good luck in your new venture.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
luck.
I'm so excited. I was telling,
Yeah.
we were chatting when I came in, I said I've already have like, just word of mouth, I already have 5 people who want to book venues as early as April, so I'm just really anxious to get going, so.
That's good news.
Yeah, it is. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming and visiting with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
We'll move on. Jeannie, go ahead. You know,
Sure.
hurry up a little bit, would you please?
What's that?
That took a long time.
I know, I'm sorry. This one should be quicker,
Yeah.
right? Item number 2, I'll just make the motion that we approve resolution 1603 relating to an application for a conditional use permit for 211 Jefferson Street. The applicant is Nick and Jamie White, and Nick is here. He's building a detached garage in his house.
I'll second.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Okay, Nick, we have questions. You want to come up?
Hi, Nick.
Hi. Who had the question? I didn't
I
see.
did.
Okay.
Why are we getting this now instead of before the garage was built?
That's a good question. I wasn't really sure exactly. When I was talking to my builder, I think the consensus was that when we had talked to Mark Belo initially, he had indicated to us that it was going to be a no-brainer, that it was totally going to be something that would be approved right away. I think somewhere along the process, I'm busy in my life, taking care of everything with my business, and it just sort of was one of those things that I found out later on that yes, I had to get this done because that 200 square feet that's extra was something that was going to require a conditional use permit. I think with Mark Belo and the last people that were in charge, they felt that reading how things were outlined, that it wasn't something that was going to require a conditional use permit based on the interpretation of the granny suite law.
Okay.
It's really just a home office.
Sure, I understand
Yeah.
that, but it's also now, if we wanted to say, we don't approve it.
Yeah,
And tell you gotta move the garage.
in that case, Jeff has indicated to me
Eric,
that I
yeah.
actually have to put in
Well, yeah.
walls that close things
Let
off.
me take you off the hot seat a little bit. Because when this first came across our desk as a building permit, that was one thing we looked at. I looked at the ordinance, and I saw that, and I kind of added up the square footage, and really it basically is for any garage that exceeds 1,000 square foot of gross aggregate area, floor area, needs a conditional use permit. And we're right on that cusp of, it's not a 2,000 square foot garage. So we looked at it and we said, and at the time, his builder was saying, well, I'd really like to get going on this. And we said, well, there's a couple options. You can continue to go ahead and build, but just would limit the square footage space on the second story to 200 square feet less. And they'd be perfectly allowed to build without any kind of conditional use. And so I think that was kind of their direction, is they were not going to finish that space off until that time, if and when this would be permitted. If it wouldn't be permitted under conditional use, then they obviously wouldn't be finishing the top layer. So that allowed them to continue to move ahead. They do have options. If it was not a permitted use, then, like we talked about, they would wall off approximately 200 square feet on top. It'd be a perfectly viable and approved under our existing ordinance without a conditional use permit. So we didn't want to hold them up, but what we discussed at the Plan Commission is we appreciate them going through the conditional use permit because that's the way it really should go through. And I think there's other instances where maybe that hasn't happened, and we want to make sure that that's going through it the proper way now.
And also the proper way should be before the unit is built?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions on this item? Tim, thank you. I believe we have a second on the floor, too. Motion and a second. If there are no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved, Nick.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Item number 3 is regarding the draft sign ordinance. So I would make a motion that we approve a public hearing date of April 7th, 2016 at the Planning Commission for the draft sign ordinance and commission and recommending the implementation date of the new ordinance be effective January 1, 2017.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? Steve is here, if you have any questions for him.
I don't have a question for him, but a question for Jeannie.
Sure.
At, was it Personnel and Public Safety, we discussed this trailer issue? And you were going to, the gentleman that was here, you were gonna forward him some information on the new language, maybe? Am I not remembering that right?
Yes, no, you're remembering
Okay,
that right.
did we do that and?
It hasn't been drafted yet.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm just, are we getting ahead of ourselves by setting a public hearing date if we haven't met that yet, if we needed to make changes to that part of it? Or is that not gonna be part of the?
I think that's different.
That's not
Okay.
gonna be,
That's
yeah,
different.
that's not part of the
Okay,
ordinance.
all right, okay,
But good
All right.
job remembering that.
Yep.
all right.
I have his business card in my calendar. We just haven't got a chance to draft it yet.
Okay.
I'm thinking that's gonna come back to the March 28th, committee meeting.
Okay.
So I'm not kind of fast tracking that at this point.
All right, okay.
Any other questions from staff or the board? Okay, question, do you have any questions, Steve? Are you good? All right. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 4.
We've had a recommendation by the Historic Preservation Commission for a public hearing date of April 7th to discuss the lighting of the Tin Man Water Tower. And are we just supposed to decide that that's okay?
I left it on there because there wasn't really a requirement for the board to set it. And
Okay.
we actually had, happening at the March planning, but we don't have enough time to do it, so we're bumping into April.
Okay, so that's just kind of informational item?
FYI. Yep.
Okay. And then our last item, number 5, is discussion and possible recommendation to the village board regarding Bucky's Portable Toilet Incorporated. Request to remove the deed restriction to allow the construction of a multi-tenant building and outdoor storage at 1185 US Highway 14 in the town of Rutland. So I'd make a motion to approve that request, and then also for village staff to write a letter of support and request that Dane County require the applicant to use a screen, for example, evergreens or blue-green spruce, to conceal the portable toilets.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll second for discussion.
So you're probably wondering why we have a letter dated March 12th going. We had to do that to make the hearing date at the county. So in some respects, the boards is sort of supporting the commissions.
Should that have read February 12th?
Oh, February 12th.
Yeah.
You're right. But anyways, Jeff had to get it in. Sometimes we actually get this after the hearings at the county level, so we had to get it in before the county held the hearing on it, so.
And my understanding from reading through the supporting documents is that Mike Slavny took a look at this and he expressed that this is the gateway to Oregon, that's how we view this area. And my understanding of the town's commission is that the village has the right to require a request,
Request. Right.
within 100 feet of the limit of the village, anything that might impact or affect? Is that how this all falls under play? Is this why we're getting involved with regard to a town decision?
It's a mile and a half.
Or a mile and a half?
It's a mile and a half, and what do they call it, the
ETJ.
village influence area?
Well,
ETJ.
is this a land division issue?
No, it's just
It's rezoning.
rezoning.
I didn't know we had anything to say on a rezone.
Well, we have the ability to comment, and that's what we're doing.
Oh, so it's just a
On
comment?
a rezoning, we have the ability to comment.
All right.
So this is an area that would potentially affect the East Gateway into Oregon, where the town is looking to make a exception to their current zoning regulations, which could affect the visibility.
It's county zoning. Just
County zoning, so it's Dane County?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what we're saying, and again, I'm just trying to clarify in my mind what I read.
Yeah.
What we're saying is we don't have a problem with you making this exception to the zoning regulations. However, given the importance of this area to the village of Oregon, we're requesting that the outdoor toilets be screened completely
You got
from
it.
view.
Yep. We're requesting, that's the key word, Jeff.
And they don't have to comply with that request.
Well, the owner was here.
Yeah, I mean.
And he was very,
Yeah.
very open to
Right.
doing whatever the planning commission wanted him to do. He said that he'd be happy to plant the trees,
Mhm.
move the trees, so he seemed very open to our suggestions. Like he wants to be a good neighbor.
Yeah, I'm on Dane County zoning, and we heard this petition last Tuesday night, and he was the same way at that zoning meeting. And he's a local gentleman, and I think he'll be very receptive to any input we might have in the future, too.
The county usually is pretty receptive to our requests.
Right,
on things like
right,
this.
and I think Chuck will be too, if we don't like what we see out there, all I think it'll take is a letter or a call from staff. He's willing to do whatever needs to be done to make that presentable to us out there, so.
But what we're approving tonight is our request, and it doesn't, this board action doesn't do anything more than that.
That's correct.
No.
Where exactly is this?
The former rat farm, I think they call it, or where they were breeding.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, I know where that is now, okay, all right.
Or if this rat farm's probably not the right term, but.
I know what you mean, though.
We all know.
Yep. I'm looking at this, I can't, where is this?
Okay. Okay,
I think we just need to vote.
we just need to vote. All those in favor?
I,
Motion carries. Thanks, Jeannie. Now we'll go back to, Matt, you can leave now if you want to. Okay. And, we'll.
Actually, not yet,
Not yet.
not yet.
Then we're gonna talk about what, Mike?
We gotta go back now and do 4C.
4C.
Yep.
That's where I was gonna go.
Yeah, well, I want Matt here for the discussion about the MOU.
Okay. We've got item 4C is discussion and possible action regarding the approval of Resolution 16-04, declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing for the proposed RCI rapid flash beacon system.
So moved.
Second.
So the board approved the purchase of this, but for us, before we actually do the purchase, this allows us to possibly reimburse ourselves if we borrow money for it in the spring. That's
Okay.
same idea.
All right. Any questions from the board before we take action on this? Hearing none, could I, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Now can Matt go?
No, MOU.
MOU.
You trying to get me out of here?
Trying to save us
Then
money.
Matt can leave. It's gets unique, because Matt drafted the MOU, so I'm gonna.
Okay, stay. Item D, discussion and possible action regarding the review of draft MOU with Dane County for transfer of highways.
I'll make the motion for discussion.
Thank you. You have a second, please.
Second.
Is this the best it's gonna get?
Well, that's a great question.
Can I just say that for a
Go
second?
ahead.
So the board should know, we met with the county back on January 14th, and then this is Matt's and my and Jeff's reaction to that meeting. So the county has not seen this, so if you
Oh,
want
so-
to, if you want to make changes to it, now's the time to give it that direction.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
But I would add to that, we have exchanged quite a few drafts with the county. We have met with them on at least 3, I think more like 4 occasions.
Yeah.
The most recent meeting was, is it December?
January 14th.
Or January 14th. And so, when, in response to your question, is this about as good as it's gonna get? I mean, I don't think there's a lot of latitude to add language that would impose additional obligations on the county at this stage.
Before we go into a long conversation about what we would love this to look like, I think that's good for us to realize.
The main thing that they wouldn't accept was the snow plowing, where we said that we would not start snow plowing until all the roads were done.
Yeah.
And so I said to them at the meeting, I said, well, right now the board knows that that's what was in one of the drafts, and they said, well, all the other agreements they have with other communities, so Fitchburg has it when they do the transfer, then we start plowing that snowing season. Or plowing season, excuse me.
And I think that asking to hold off and have them do the snow until all the roads are completed, I think I suggested we do that, because if we don't ask, we're never gonna get it. So it was kind of like a,
See if their action.
would have been surprised if they'd have agreed to that, but, any other questions or comments? I have a few, if no one else has any.
Doug's got a question here.
During the
Doug, go
discussion
ahead.
that we had over this issue some time ago, we included striping of North Main Street during the reconstruction of the street at one point. Was that dropped at county request?
You said striping?
Yes, for a bike lane along one side or the other of the, it was
They-
discussed and included in one of the.
Yeah, they had a major issue with trying to fit a bike lane on any of the roads we're gonna be doing.
They did.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's enough room, is
Yeah.
what their
We'll
position
be
was.
evaluating that as
Yeah.
things get designed. I mean, we'll continue to push for those kind of areas, especially, I know we were looking at going out Jefferson Street and everything like that.
It's gonna be tight. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
You know, we're not gaining width
No.
in any of this. In fact, I think the big thing to focus on here is the thing that we have gained is that they're acknowledging the fact that some of the subsoils below the pavement is actually very substandard, and that they're committing to, instead of just a mill and overlay, they're committing to a, we'll call it partial reconstruction of the roadway, not including curb and gutter, but, you know, when they do come time for a jurisdictional transfer, we'll have confidence, I think, that we're taking over a nice road.
And I should note too, Doug, that, and to the board, that this is just an MOU, and then for every stretch of the road that we do, we'll actually have a contract between the village and the county with more details in that contract.
And who's gonna be the oversight from the village on that?
Jeff?
Jeff?
Yes.
Are you gonna hire any outside consultant to assist in that, or?
We'll have to we'll look at what our schedule is as well as what our needs will be.
Okay.
We may be just using our regular village engineers for
Okay.
some review and possibly some construction observation.
Yeah, because we want to make sure we do have close oversight on that project.
Absolutely.
Each phase of that project. Okay. Any other questions? Doug, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it answered my question.
Okay. I think, Mike, would you go over there's one thing I'm not sure the board understands. I was at that meeting. So I'm a little bit more versed than the rest of you may be, but would you go over the Ash Street part of it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because
Yeah.
that's,
That's
you
a good
know,
point. Thank you,
that,
Jerry.
it isn't gonna go all the way out to the village
Yep.
limits, and Mike will tell you why.
Yeah. So the first phase, that if the board agrees with this and the county agrees with this, would be in 2017. We do it from basically the railroad bridge out to Ash Street. But the piece that was in one of the other draft MOUs from Ash Street out to the village's boundaries, the county has pulled back for two reasons. First is they can't do that and then transfer that to the village during that stretch, because there's 3 town properties in there, so they really legally couldn't do that. But also, they found, because of Mark and Jeff's suggestion, when we did the soil borings out there, they have bad soil. It's like, was it like $1 million project to do?
Yeah, it was
Almost a complete rebuild from Ash Street out to the village's boundaries.
Yeah, it was an estimate of almost $1.1 million for that single stretch reconstruction.
So I think
So that piece has been pushed off, so now we're just talking about three phases.
that road is floating out there. It's just floating.
It's a miracle.
Yeah,
It's
amazing. No, it
It's holding
is.
together, actually.
It's amazing how good it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's, again, it's floating on a bed of very unstable soil.
Awesome.
How it all works, I don't know, but it does. And it's the county's responsibility, and
Yep.
we're very happy not to have to
Take
make
it
it part
over.
of this,
Yep.
you know. My next question is, the village is responsible for the installation of water main and other utilities as this project progresses, right?
For all 3 phases.
For all 3 phases.
If needed, right.
Have we budgeted for that?
Well, that's gonna be in the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So we will be budgeting for
so I
that.
mean, when let's say we're in 2018 and we're doing phase 2, and, you know, Jeff determines that part of the water main has to get replaced, that'll be something that we'd include in the budget and the borrowing for that year.
Okay. And the thing I didn't understand too is and when we get to page 2, item 1, the county will do spot curb and gutter not to exceed 20% of the total linear feet of curb, and do center line painting, manhole adjustment, spot curb repair. They mentioned that twice. So I don't know, one of those spot curb repairs can come out. I would imagine.
No, this is it says manhole adjustment, spot curb repair, and crosswalk painting shall be done by the village.
Oh, okay.
I think that
So-
20%, Jerry, is part of that 1999 policy they have. Is it right?
So, okay, I misunderstand. The county will do spot curb repair in their 20%.
Bingo.
Okay.
Up to 20% spot curb repair
Yeah.
will be done by the.
The important part is Jeff understands it, so he's gonna be supervising the project.
Well, again, but that'll be, when we have the signed contract, that'll be all outlined in the contract for each phase.
Yeah, something that might not really jump out at everyone. This is not the final agreement with respect to these projects. This is, it's called a memorandum of understanding. It is to set forth the counties and the villages' shared understanding of what they would like to see happen. But there will have to be funds approved by both the village and the county.
That's true.
To do each of the projects. And then there will be a more detailed agreement between the parties with respect to each of the projects before the project starts. So the goal here was to put together an umbrella agreement between the parties that would provide, we were hoping to get everything covered, all of the roads that were under discussion covered, so that we would be able to plan for and accomplish the reconstruction work over, a mutually agreeable time period, and we're close. The only thing that stopped it was that really bad, expensive piece of road that everybody's just kicked the can down the road on that one.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yep.
On page 3, the second paragraph, I'm not sure I understand that paragraph.
It's the intent? Starts with, it's the intent?
Yep, yes. The intent of the party is that the above 3 phases shall be completed. In the event this does not occur, however, the parties understand and agree that each phase of the project shall stand alone, and the financial and jurisdictional transfer requirements shall not be contingent upon completion of all the phases.
Yeah, we were looking for some different language. We wanted to say that the jurisdictional transfer would not happen until all phases had been completed.
Right.
The county said no. As each phase is completed, the jurisdictional transfer happens.
But not until the phase is completed, right?
Not until that phase is completed.
Okay.
But they don't have to get all 3 done before.
Right, got it. Any other questions? Thanks for bringing this forward.
Sure.
Mike and Matt.
Yeah, there's a motion on the floor, Jerry.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Did we have a second?
Jeannie did.
Yeah, I don't remember either, so.
That's right, that's right, I'm down. Now, Matt, you can
Now I
leave.
can go.
Yeah, all right. Okay, Jerry, can you leave now?
No, I want him to stay
All
now.
right, night now,
Yeah.
sorry. Sorry.
Item 5,
Thanks, Matt. You bet.
we've already done the planning. No, we haven't.
Yep, so good, 5A. You gotta do it.
5A, we've got a, Mike, you wanna take this one?
I think we just need to make a motion to approve the minutes, this December 14th joint meeting with the Plan Commission.
Could I have a second, please?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move on to item 6, approval of vouchers. Any board members have any questions on any of the vouchers that have been paid?
That huge number is the money that gets sent to the state?
That's the tax settlement that we do with all the other taxing jurisdictions, so it would include the school district, MATC.
The state and the county, because we collect it all and then we have to send them their portion.
So I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers in the amount of $8,051,000, $8,051,829.12.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on these items? Hearing none, all those in favor?
We gotta do a roll call.
Oh, roll call.
Grenier,
Yes.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Bollig,
Yes.
Brethauer,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Poole,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
See you, Matt.
Move on to item 7, community input. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board tonight for 15 minutes or less? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go back to the agenda then. Item 8, proclamations and announcements. Are there any board comments? Any staff comments?
Just the reminder about the meeting next Monday night, the special Public Works meeting.
Thank you. What time is
I
that?
guess I would like to make one comment. I want to thank the village staff for bringing forward these couple of projects that address the needs of the low and moderate income demographic. It's clear that that demographic is growing, not just in Oregon, but elsewhere. And I think for the village to be forward-looking and create space and support for that demographic is very important. So thank you for bringing those projects forward.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else? Hearing none, hearing nothing further, then we'll move on to item 9, communications and miscellaneous business. Item A is discussion and possible action regarding the approval of reclassifying Candy Jones to the Director of Administrative Services / Deputy Treasurer position, approval of Director of Administrative Services / Deputy Treasurer job description, contingent upon the labor attorney's review, and authorize staff to recruit for the deputy clerk position. Mike?
Yep. So I prepared a staff memo and a draft job description for this. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the report, I wanted to get this to the personnel meeting in January, but I ran out of time. And the reason why I didn't want to wait till the end of March to take it to that committee meeting is that if this gets approved, we'd like to start recruiting as soon as we can for the deputy clerk position, so that that person's here to work on the last 2 large elections this year. And as I also explained in the report, I'm proposing to reclassify Candy to the Director of Administrative Services, Deputy Treasurer position, and I provide the reasons for it. We need to have a person who is more dedicated to dealing with human resource duties to take some of that load off of Peggy. And I don't know if you noticed in the job description, I assigned percentages I think would be her workload. 30% would be dedicated to finance duties to help Lisa do some of her work. But then she'd also be, continue to do some clerk and general duties, and also be the computer and social media contact person for the village. And then we would take the vacant clerk assistant 2 position and retitle that into the deputy clerk position. And again, that person would be handling some of the things that Candy's doing, including helping Peggy work on the elections every year, which has become almost a part-time job now upstairs.
So this isn't so much an add to staff as it is a reclassification of existing requisitions
Correct.
and existing staff?
That's correct, yep.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I have one question. What about is there a budget impact for this, Mike?
Yep. Wait, he's got a motion on the floor, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll second for discussion.
Second for discussion.
Thank you.
Now I'll ask my question. And that's the same question.
Yep, so as I discussed on the, under that section here on the second page there, there is obviously a budget impact, and one of the things that I'm suggesting is that since Candy's position would be responsible for coordinating the request for proposal for the salary survey that we have budgeted in this year's budget, we may just hold that over to help cover the positions instead of conducting the survey in 2016. By the time, you know, if she actually goes into that position in May or possibly June to get geared up to do that this year is probably unlikely. We'll probably bounce that survey into 2017.
Okay.
And then if the new deputy clerk position doesn't take family health insurance, that would decrease it by another $11,000, so I think we'll be okay.
So what again would cause that to be bumped into 17?
Doing the salary survey.
Yeah.
Because we not have enough time to get ready to do it.
the
Because
time factor.
if she doesn't start her position in May, I can maybe answer that better by, I tried to come up with, I thought were the key things that she would be doing as far as projects. And, I mean, I want her to finish the update to the employee handbook that we started back in 2011. So before we do any salary survey, which is a pretty involved process, I want her to finish the handbook. And then, as I list, I got some other things in here. I'd like to start thinking about doing a different way of recruiting online for open positions, updating all village job descriptions using a consistent format, then conducting the salary survey, but again, I wouldn't anticipate doing that probably till 2017. Evaluate the village's health insurance program response to possible state of Wisconsin changes. I don't know if you saw that last week. They're going to go out and look at self-insured. And what I've been reading is that if they go self-insured in 2018, it may hit us in 2019 or 2020, something like that. So we'd have to be, cognizant of that. Also evaluate the village's current organizational chart, which may include revising the village administrator's supervisory duties. And then lastly, present some recommendations on improving the village's background process for new employees. So with that being said, I don't think she would jump in and start doing the salary survey, or doing an RFP for a salary survey this year.
Doesn't sound like it. Any questions from the board?
I've got
Eric?
one, and I just don't want to, I don't want you to think I'm picking on anybody.
No.
During budget time, there was extensive discussion about a salary survey. I would personally like to see that done yet this year. I don't know what the other employees would feel if, we budgeted for it, but now we're gonna take that budgeted money and put it toward her salary. I'm just hoping we can find the $10,000 to start that now.
So you realize that $10,000 was not to give to
It's not the whole, I know.
No,
it's just
it was
to
not
start
really
it.
to give to the employees. That was to hire the
right.
consultant.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I still think we need to seriously think about that, because we've all made the commitment or the comments that, we know staff, all the, every employee in the village is not, or should be bumped
In the
up
market,
some.
yeah.
I think we need to, start looking at that sooner than later, because if we don't start till 2017, we might not actually get around doing it until 2020. I think we need to, let the employees know we're concerned about them, we care about them,
Yeah.
we need to do something.
We could still do the simple survey that we do, which we send out, to our 7 or 8 comparables, and we can do that this year. I'm talking about actually doing an RFP,
Right.
hiring a
The big
consultant.
thing that we did before
Yeah,
with
back in
whoever that was.
2000. That's
Right.
how long ago it's been.
Right.
So yeah, I agree. There's 2 different things we could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to do something.
Okay.
I don't know
I
what,
appreciate
but I
that.
think we need to.
No, that's something that
because-
Candy could do. She could do
Okay.
that when she got
All right.
reclassified. She could do that survey versus having Lisa do it every year. Right. Okay.
And
That's a fair
she's
point.
qualified for this? I'm assuming she's
yeah.
got the.
I wouldn't be. No, I wouldn't be recommending. And I will say that some of the board members have been around. We have struggled with trying to figure a way to get somebody who is a human resource person to get more focused on it. And we've tried to think about, well, do we go out and hire a professional human resource person and try to get them to do clerk work? And we just couldn't figure out how to do it. Plus, we couldn't figure out how to fit it in the budget. I think this is the better way of doing it.
Okay.
So I'm very comfortable with the proposal.
Okay. And now that I picked on Candy, I want to pick on Peggy a second now. Since Peggy's losing this responsibility, are we going to reduce her pay?
We'll find things for her to do.
I'm pretty confident there's a wide array of things that
Okay.
in my office that
All right. Like, for example, one thing that I didn't put on here, I could have made this a long list. We need to have somebody with the new deputy clerk focusing on updating the massive municipal code book.
Okay. I'm just giving her a hard time.
I know you are.
it's a project that I would like to get at that I don't have time for, unfortunately.
There was a question about whether the position would be exempt. Kyle was going to look into that. Was
Yeah,
that-
so that's why I have on here, if the board approves it, it would be contingent on labor attorney's review.
Is there there's no indication yet from him on his opinion?
He was out of the office last week, so he hasn't gotten back.
I was a little puzzled. I couldn't quite understand the organizational chart. Maybe it would be clear to me if I could see the chart. But if the new position's created, and Candy's role as the Director of Administrative Services, she would report to you. In the position of Deputy Treasurer, would she report to the Treasurer then?
So she'll be reporting mainly to me, Lisa, and Peggy. When I'm talking about doing the organizational chart, I'm talking about sitting down, working with me to look at how the organizational chart for the whole village is. And then like how my position fits into it, for example, and if you want to maybe do some additional reclassifications. So it isn't just about this position, it's about the village's org chart itself that we have.
One last question then, regarding the position itself. Will there be an opportunity for anybody else to apply for the position if he or she thinks that they would be qualified for the position, or how do you see that?
For the Director of Administrative Services?
Yeah,
I'm actually just I'm proposing a reclassification.
just a reclass.
Right. If somebody wants to apply for the deputy clerk position, we'll be posting that job as soon as we can.
Did that address your concern, Doug?
Based on that last comment Doug made, I had a person that is in a different department thought that they could be qualified for this and have been here longer. That's a concern that I had raised to me. I don't know if they would bring that to you.
I didn't hear
or
that.
but be prepared for that.
Sure.
I don't know how you want to handle something like that.
I
but-
stand by my recommendation.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Jeannie, go ahead.
I would second Eric's concerns about putting off that RFP process for the survey. That's, during the budget process, that was a pretty big priority for the board. And so if we need to come up with $10,000, it has, in my opinion, it has to come from somewhere else. I still want to do the RFP survey.
Well, as I said back in the budget, that was only going to probably pay for half of it. We were going to start it in the middle of this year and then finish it next year. So if I didn't say that clearly in the budget, I didn't anticipate that we're going to hire a consultant for $10,000. If we're going to do a full-scale RFP, looking at our salary survey, looking at our evaluation system, all that, it's going to be probably more than that, to be honest with you. And so what we did was, when Lisa and I plugged that $10,000 in there, we were working with the expenditure restraint, and that's all we could find to keep us under the expenditure restraint amount in the budget this year. I think Lisa, I don't think we're going to hire someone, unless we do a very small scale-back process. But I wanted to hire someone to help us look at the evaluation system as well.
You're doing the PAR study again.
Exactly.
basically.
And that is, even back then, I think that was like $15,000 16 years ago or something, maybe more than that. But we just couldn't figure out how to get that in the total process in this year's budget, so we were going to split it between 2 budget years. And then once you do the study, then you got to figure out where you're going to find the money then to do all the potential adjustments as well.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but I just remember that being a priority for a lot of us, is that we realize that there are, I don't know about a lot, but there are a significant number of village folks that are on the lower edge of the pay scales for their jobs.
Right.
And to push that off for a year so that we can create this position is unfair, in my opinion, to a whole lot of people.
Well, again, we were not going to do the whole study this year.
I know, but this is now pushing it off a whole nother year,
Well,
just even starting it.
but we could probably, there'll be somebody dedicated to working on it next year if we do that.
Okay.
And I'm not arguing with you, I just want to make sure I was very clear, the $10,000 would probably, unless you just want to say, we're not going to look at benefits, we're just going to do a strictly, boilerplate salary survey, we could probably do that for $10,000, but if you want to do something more exotic than that, it's probably not going to be enough money.
Then why was that $10,000 even in there?
To start, I wanted to, again, trying to work with an expenditure restraint program with the state. We're going to split it between 2 years, 10,000 this year and 10,000 next year.
So are you still committed to getting it done next year or getting it started next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing is the schedule for the study hasn't changed, it's just how we're gonna fund it.
If the board wants to,
Put it off a year.
It's gonna be delayed a whole year.
well,
Now, let me just
I'm
ask one quick question before you go.
Yeah, okay.
What additional benefits would we offer? Aren't we kind of locked into what we have now, or is there more out there that we aren't aware of that we would do? Maybe the $10,000 survey or approximately just to do a salary would be adequate.
Right.
I don't know.
So in the past, when we've talked about doing this, I've had a couple of board members say, when we're gonna do a survey like this, they wanna look at everything. And so, that's one of the things before we would have to write the RFP, bring it to Jeannie's committee, the board have to approve it and say, this is what we're gonna look at. And most of the time when I've done this, elected officials have wanted to make it bigger versus more narrow. So that's why I anticipate it's gonna be more than $10,000. So, I don't see that we're delaying it, because we were gonna have to split it up over 2 years anyways. And if I wasn't clear about that in the budget process, I apologize for that.
Well, I understood it to be,
Yeah.
we were gonna fund it over 2 years
Yeah.
and do it next, in 17. That's what I understood.
Well, how could we do it next year in 17 if we run into an expenditure restraint program again? We gotta start in 2016 to finish it in 2017. Correct?
Well, then
Based on this
in the
10,000?
2017 budget, then the board says that's the priority, then we don't do certain thing. I mean, it ended up being something that Lisa and I were trying to find some money to do, but we, again, trying to stay within the expenditure restraint program, was kind of the plug number that we put in there. And so the board next year says, I know, Tom, I can't do this off the top of my head. We don't do something, but because we're gonna spend $20,000 on the salary survey.
Right. Well, I think we kinda said that this year, about the 10,000.
Yeah, but it was never gonna be started this year.
No, it was,
Yeah.
it was.
So
If the board,
Can
okay,
we take
this,
out
so let's
contingency?
do this. I don't wanna argue with the board about this. We'll do it, I'll have her focus on that versus some other things that I had on this list. We'll do that. We'll get it started this year.
That's not my argument. My argument is that we're taking money that we budgeted for a specific purpose, and now we're instead putting it into a new position. I have a philosophical
Okay.
problem with that.
So you tell me what you wanna do.
I wanna keep the $10,000 budgeted for the survey.
Okay, that's fine.
Can we find the 10,000 somewhere else?
We can.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So,
But I just want the board to know, then, there'll be some other things on this list you won't, because that will take some time to do. So,
would you report back as to what those items are?
well, I mean, I'm saying, the list I have here, she will focus on the salary survey before she starts doing some other things on this list. So,
Is everyone clear on that?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
and we're still good with that? Okay. Peggy, do we have a motion and a second on the floor right now?
We have a motion by Boudreaux and a second by Kirkpatrick.
Okay. Any further questions on the reclassification as Mike has presented it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Before we say that, can I vote on that? I guess I can, it doesn't
I
really
think you
affect
can.
me. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I better check.
Yeah.
I guess I took part in
Oh,
the
and
discussion.
you lost me for a second. What did you just,
Yeah.
we just voted. What are you
I know,
talking
I
about?
guess I took part in the discussion and I thought,
you're-
maybe I shouldn't have even done that, I don't know.
But I guess, before we leave that, I just wanna make sure that, so we'll come to Jeannie's committee with the proposed RFP. We realize that unless we can find more money in the budget, we're not gonna probably end up doing the whole survey this year. You understand that, right?
Can we bank the money to do it the next year?
I think we should get started on it.
Well, I'm saying we have $10,000 in the budget. So let's say we do the RFP and it comes back at $18,000 is the firm we want to hire. Unless the board says, find the other $8,000, the study is gonna probably leak into 2017 to budget for the balance of and we've done that in other projects. I mean, that's sometimes what you have to do.
That's fine, as long as we're moving forward and
Okay.
using that money to budget, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
We all good? And then we'll move on. I'll move on to item B. Chief, you've been waiting for this one patiently.
Yeah, yeah. Not sure I want to go next now, though.
Yeah, well, I was gonna ask you that, but I think we will anyway. Discussion and possible action regarding request to waive bidding requirement for a new air conditioning unit at the police building, budgeted at $31,876. So apparently you need air conditioning over there?
Yeah, we'd like to stay, somewhat
Okay.
reasonable in the summertime.
Oh, in the summer, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have a bid from, I think Staley, I believe it is, for this amount, and that bid is only good until the end of March, and then it goes up by 3%. So that was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring it to the board right away, and then, I think Lisa had mentioned something about borrowing and timeframes there. But we would kind of like to get the air conditioning in before it gets too hot, so if we delay it too long, then it's not gonna get done until July or sometime in there, so. I'm not sure what the board's opinion is, but we'd like to move along with this process as fast as we can.
Okay, and then I think if we look at history, the history that the mechanicals in that building doesn't have a very good reputation. I think we had how many different firms involved in the mechanicals before?
Right, and that's part of
Yeah.
the issue is, do we want to put it out for
Yeah, but
bid
this
and
is
then
not
have,
defined as tonight.
somebody else come in
Okay.
and do the HVAC when Staley does the majority of it now anyway, so.
So I want to make sure that the board knows what we're talking about tonight. We're not talking about buying the AC tonight. What we're asking you is to, whether or not you want to waive the bidding requirements, because it's over $10,000. And if the board then says it's okay to waive, you're going to waive that, then at the next board meeting, we'll bring the actual proposal from Staley for you to vote on.
Okay.
And the reason why we had to do this is because I think we did it for these two units in here too. The question is mixing different contractors on something like this. So now you'd have a different contractor installing an AC unit, and you got Staley Plumbing doing the rest of the building, and
Right.
sometimes it gets, actually, that was one of the problems we had when we took over the police building. We had different contractors on different units over there, so.
Well, Staley's the one that's got the contract for maintenance, right? Or
Exactly, for all the
whatever-
buildings now.
whatever it is?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
okay. And are they doing something like that, or are they doing an actual unit?
Actual unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get a motion on the floor. Could I please have a motion to waive the bidding requirement for a new air conditioning unit at the police building
So moved.
at a budgeted cost of $31,876? So, got a motion? Could I please have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion on this item?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm generally opposed to not having an RFP process for a couple of reasons. The first is I don't think it's fair to the community. And the second is it sort of takes away the opportunity that we have to negotiate price. You noticed in the last RFP, even though the bid wasn't accepted for the appraiser sharpened his pencil. So when there's multiple RFPs out, appraisers are gonna give you the best price, and if they really want the business, they're gonna argue for it. And again, not that the lowest price is the way to go. For me personally, it's always a combination of cost and quality, and I might wind up in the middle. And so I wouldn't expect that you would necessarily go with the lowest price, but there's been a couple of large purchases now that have come to the board where we've gone with somebody because it's been easier, it's been convenient, because they've been a longtime vendor of ours, and I'd just like to see us slowly kind of get away from that.
Well, this has got nothing to do with that, Jeff. We've only been using Staley for less than a year. This is strictly, it's a question for the board whether or not you want to have the potential of having a different contractor take care of the air conditioning unit in the police building and then have Staley Plumbing being taking care of everything else in the building.
Yeah, so that's not actually what's in front of us right now. What's in front of us right now, not to correct you, but I'm going to correct you.
Go ahead.
Is whether we want to waive the bidding requirement.
But that's the justification for waiving it.
I understand that there's justification, and I think in a case-by-case
Yeah.
basis, maybe it's exactly what we need to do. And obviously 3%, and we've got a month. Well, you're not going to get RFPs in a month, and you might lose a sweetheart deal in the process. So I get that. I just wanted to make sure that I made the statement.
Yeah.
While I'm okay, my personal opinion is I'm okay voting for this.
Okay.
I don't want it to go unnoticed that I think it's very important for us not to get in the habit of not putting out large bids for RFP because of the points that I made.
Yep. And typically, we don't do that, except that's by trying to explain the reason why we have it in front of the board tonight.
But in the past couple of years that I've been here, I can think of at least 2 or 3 other large purchases that were made that were not put out to RFP for other reasons.
Well, we did it, like I said, we did it for these 2 units, and again, using the same reasoning, so.
Would it be helpful to state in the motion the reason for the waiving of the requirement? Just so we are clear with the public as to the reason why?
It'd be up to Eric and Darlene to do that.
Yeah, why don't we?
Why don't you amend your motion?
I'll just
Tell
amend
Mike.
my motion for the explanation that Mike gave us, So we keep the person who has the maintenance contract and the person installing the unit the same, right? Correct?
Yep.
That's okay with my second.
Well, now I'm wondering, not to go down a rabbit trail, but if I'm a contractor and I'm gonna be awarded the maintenance contract under the assumption that I'm going to get first crack or the only crack at any improvements that are gonna be made, I think I should take that into consideration when I bid out the maintenance. Because I potentially stand to win some pretty large contracts.
I'm missing your point. How does that
So-
affect this motion?
Well, if we're gonna amend it, that the reason that we're making the exception is because in an instance where the contractor who provides us with the maintenance is gonna bid on an improvement, capital improvement, we're gonna give it to that person by virtue of the fact that they provide us the maintenance, then I think it changes the relationship that we have with the contractor that provides us the maintenance. I guess without complicating things, I'd be more in favor of just, based on this discussion, approving a waive in this particular instance without necessarily nailing down why I did it.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't want to be held to that down the road.
Oh.
When there's another capital improvement that needs to be made and some contractor says, but wait a minute, you've already said that you're gonna award it to me because I'm the contractor
So-
that maintains it.
What you're saying is toss the amendment.
Well,
Explain
what I'm
why we're
suggesting
doing
is I would rather just approve the waive based on the conversation. I don't necessarily disagree that you want to specify why we're making an exception, but I just wouldn't want to be bound to that exception in a future discussion.
Okay.
See, and you let Matt go home early.
Yeah, that's my
But Jeff,
fault.
you wouldn't, Jeff.
Huh?
You're not gonna be bounded by that. No one's gonna come and say, well, you did it for A, you gotta do it for B. I mean, I just,
The village board can do whatever it wants to do.
There's a
I
policy.
mean, if we decide we don't wanna do that again, we won't.
$10,000, it's clearly
Yep.
stated
So,
bidding policy, I think.
Over 10,000 is a
Yeah.
capital expense.
Right, so we're just simply saying the reason for the exemption is
Yeah.
for the
was there, but there
waiver.
wasn't
It's
they
that.
didn't do the official motion
Whatever.
or amended on
Whatever
there.
you're saying.
we didn't vote on it.
No.
So, do we wanna vote on this amendment? Jeff, are you saying you'd rather just leave it vague, a little vague?
I'd rather just leave it vague based on the conversation that we're having.
I'll
Is that-
withdraw my amendment.
And Darlene, will you please
I
withdraw your
withdraw
second?
too.
Pretty please? Okay, thank you. So we're back to the original motion then. Did we ever act on that original motion?
Nope, nope.
Okay. Any further discussion on the original motion to do the AC? All those in favor?
I'm gonna vote against it because I feel that we should be strong enough or open enough to say the reasons for our waiver for this purchase.
Okay, you have a right to do that, Doug. Thank you. Any other comments or discussion?
My only other comment would be that I would ask Jeff and the engineers to really be on top of this, because this is two buildings that the village has built pretty much brand new that have fundamental problems with the way that they were constructed, specifically the HVAC and the heating. So please eat your lunch there.
What's the other building?
The fire department, the fire EMS department.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more on that.
We've had problems since day one, almost, in that
Yeah.
building.
Okay, any further discussion?
A lot of comments I can make about that, but that's for the meeting.
Don't have 12 hours.
Mhm.
No further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chief, are you good with that?
I'm fine with that, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Jerry, I think Doug wanted to vote no.
And,
May I vote?
I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
5-1.
For our vote.
Thank you, Peggy. So we'll move on to item C. Discussion and possible action declaring an old computer server as surplus. Lisa? Is that Lisa, or is that?
No, just,
So
that's,
moved.
that's just the motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item D, discussion and possible action setting the interest rate at 0.5% for 2015, and this is for interdepartmental transfers, is that
Yeah,
right?
it's for the advances that we have from like the general fund to some of the other funds, so it's an annual thing that we have to do.
Great. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
So moved.
We missed it doing it.
Could I have a second, please?
Second with a question, shouldn't it be 2016?
No.
No, it's
We
last
missed
year?
doing it in November.
Oh,
We
okay.
typically do it in November, and we
Okay.
Right.
missed it. So
Okay.
I needed it now because I'm working on doing all the stuff for the audit, and I needed
Oh.
my interest rate.
Everyone clear on that?
Yep.
I did.
Kurt?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
The interest rate is now 0.5% on interdepartmental transfers. Thank you. Motion carries. Item E, discussion and possible action regarding a temporary Class B license for the Oregon Rotary Club cheese and wine tasting on March 5th at the Gorman Company. No alcohol will be sold, only sampled, and Jeannie Carpenter will give us you want to give us a little overview on this, Jeannie?
Sure.
I'll just make a motion.
Okay, make a motion. We have. Is there a
So
second?
moved.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Doug. Let's have a discussion now.
Sure, so this is the 7th annual Oregon Rotary Cheese and Wine Tasting. I think it's the 5th year that we've been doing it at the Gorman Company. It's the biggest fundraiser for Oregon Rotary Club. We have 10 cheeses and 10 wines, and we do the wines in 2-ounce pours, sample pours. No alcohol is sold. We keep it's a attendance limit to 150 people. And we have hired security through GBM. And I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, Jeannie.
And I will obviously abstain from voting on this,
Okay,
since my name's on the license.
all
Do you
right.
have the cost?
Oh, yes, tickets, thank you, Darlene. I shouldn't be marketing this. So, tickets are $25, and you can get them at OregonRotary.org, or you can see any Rotarian or me to purchase tickets. Goes to a good cause.
Thank you, Jeannie. Any further questions on this? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And I'm abstaining.
Okay, did you get that? Item F, installation of LED lights by Alliant Energy on North Alpine Parkway.
I can take this one. You see the email that is in your packet, basically it's from Alliant Energy, and just something that they're putting back on kind of a priority item. Alliant will, as soon as, they've not done a rate study or a rate increase in over 6 years, and there will come a time where they will be doing a rate change, at which they would then be proposing to actually change out almost all of the high-pressure sodium and metal halide lights into LED lights. You're seeing a lot of this kind of happen in different areas. This is just kind of a part of a project that was put on hold for a little while. Now it's back on. It'd be replacing just the double mastheads lights, which are from Netherwood on Alpine Parkway, from Netherwood south, pretty much kind of to the top of the hill, just about where it kind of quits being a boulevard. Kind of what you'd be able to see with it is kind of I think a cleaner light. You're not going to have as much light pollution. They're more efficient. Less maintenance. Ideally, Alliant's been actually exceptional with fixing lights when we've had any problems. They've come out usually within that day and fix them for people. I asked Jeff McCarthy today about if we look at, by changing these, we pay a per fee cost per standard every year for these, and that'll be something to be evaluated when they do a rate study of their own at some time. But in the time being, we're actually one of 3 or 4 communities that they're doing this in. It'll be a nice upgrade out there. If you guys have any questions about it, or time frame is probably late second quarter, early third quarter of this year.
Jerry asked me to fill in while he was gone. Is that okay? Or does
Absolutely.
Peggy have to do it since she's the
No,
clerk?
you can do it.
Okay. We don't need to vote on that, do we? That's just more of an FYI?
FYI, yep.
Okay. Item
It was
G.
something that was already approved a couple years ago,
Okay.
so.
Item G is information regarding race day events on June 19th for a bike ride. I'm assuming that's just an FYI also?
FYI, yep. And this is a little different than the other rides we have, where this is for profit, so there'll be, some officers will be working for the race, and, you know, be on time and a half, and they'll be paying for everything.
Okay.
Item H, reminder, the village clerk's office will be closed from 7:30 to 9:30 on February 23rd for AED and CPR training.
Tomorrow.
Item I is the Fire and EMS District's January report.
And I have to forward you something from the fire chief. We had a fire on Friday, so I'll send that to the board tomorrow. Send a press release on that.
Item J is Dane County Executive Parisi's call for regional area, or Capital Regional Planning Commission reform.
So, this is not surprising.
Okay.
Jill's had some issues with CARPC, and so I'm just sharing with the board.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
We'll move on to K, status of light pole on downtown Quick Trip. Jeff?
Yeah, someone from Warrior Landscaping, when they were cleaning Quick Trip parking lot during our last snowfall, backed into the light pole, knocked it over. They're taking responsibility for it. We've already ordered a backup for that. That'll be in a little while, and Gary will be forwarding that to them and their insurance. It's really just a kind of a non-issue, other than the fact that it's visible out there with a couple of cones, and we're always appreciative when those kind of things are being taken care of by the responsible parties.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
We'll move on to item L, and I think
I'm on again.
you're on again. Tell us about Alliant Energy's upgrades.
Yeah, this was just kind of an FYI update. There's been a lot of work that Intercon, the contractor hired by Alliant Energy, to do some upgrades over to the Green Acre subdivision area, which is kind of west of the railroad tracks, all the way to almost like, what would be Alpine Meadows subdivision?
Yep.
And Butternut to Jefferson, kind of in that area. It's all buried underground. It's old cable. It's apparently reached the end of its useful life, and they've had some issues with it in some other areas as well. So what you see going out there now are the Intercon installing the underground cable, and then Alliant and or Intercon, maybe in combination, will be out this spring to actually then connect that cable to new transformers and pads that'll be put. They're all working within the right-of-ways and the easements that they have, and they've committed to come back and to repair any kind of damaged areas this spring. So, haven't really received a lot of complaints, a few complaints from residents, but I think it's just, we've encouraged them to really be active in notifying the residents if there's any outages, as well as, if they're going to be in their yard or something in an approved easement.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll move on to item M, discussion and possible action regarding the approval of quotation from Gov Office to upgrade Village's webpage in the amount of $7,700, and this funding is in 2016 budget.
So moved.
Can I please have a second?
Second.
May I have some discussion on this item, please?
Yeah, as we discussed during the budget process, we looked at a couple of different ways of updating the village's webpage, and to completely switch to a different company was like over $40,000. So we're just our proposal to stay with Gov Office, who's been our webpage provider for a number of years, and our webpage does need some updates, and this is what's being proposed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
If somebody wanted to look at the website and had an interest in economic development, would they get referred to the chamber website, or how would that work in that particular case?
Well, there is a link to the chamber. I'd have to take a look to see exactly how that happens, Doug.
That would be where the economic development page would be found, likely?
I'm not sure if you clicked in there where it goes, to be honest. I'll take a look at that.
Is that okay, Doug?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we got a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. I guess we're gonna move to item 11 now, minutes not requiring action. Library Board meeting of January 13th. Any questions on those minutes? Could I have a motion to approve those?
Doesn't require.
Oh, it doesn't require action. 12 is unfinished business, which we have none. Item 13 is new business, approval of the pending new operator license, and these have been approved by the police department. Quick Trip number 302, Mary Culligan, Lisa Fix, Renee Laufman. Mulligan's is Brittany Dutz, and headquarters is Adam Kipura.
So moved.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Got a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I've got some future agenda items here. Mike, do you care to list those, or?
No, just for FYI.
FYI? Item,
Can I ask a question before you go to item 15 that might fall down?
well, we're not done with,
Sorry.
we're not done with 14 yet,
Okay.
but yes, you may, as soon as we're done with 14. Discussion with Village's financial advisor regarding updating the financial plan and future debt service rescheduled to the May 2nd board meeting. Everybody clear on that? Move on to F. Dregney is gonna draft a new compliance checks process for the March 28th committee meeting. And if we're clear on that, we'll move on to item 15, but Eric has a question.
Yeah, and I don't know if I should have brought this up under board comments. Were we gonna have Bergamot come in here and talk to us about their liquor license? The compliance checks? Or was that a committee level meeting?
So as part of the compliance checks process, that may go in there, that everyone that would fail would come and talk to the committee.
So we weren't gonna have Bergamot come in since they failed twice in a row. I kinda thought we did where we wanted them to, but I could be wrong.
I don't remember
I
that.
think we talked about it, but do you want them to come to a committee meeting?
Well,
Or
you
you
know,
want
we
them
had
to
Quick
come
Trip
here?
come, and that was my comment at the time.
Yeah.
Quick Trip came and sat in front of us, but that's because they wanted their cider license and everything
Exactly.
too. And I just didn't know,
We
since
haven't-
Bergamot failed twice in a row, that maybe they should be sitting in that
I
chair.
think we
should-
talked about possibly having them do that if they fail more than twice in a one-year rolling period.
Okay.
That's what we talked about
It's
possibly doing.
it's possibly going in the policy that Matt's
Okay,
drafting.
so that would be the next time then, instead of this.
I mean, if the board wanted people to come in that failed this past year, they could do that and have them come to a meeting. It's up to you.
What would be the context? It would be an invitation? We can't compel them, right?
No.
No, I just didn't know if what Quick Trip, you know, if they were thinking in the back of their mind, oh, they brought us in and scolded us a
They're here
little
for
bit.
this. They're here for the cider.
I know, but that we told them a few things if they were
Personally,
thinking,
I
why
wouldn't
aren't they
be- I
picking
wouldn't
on
be-
Bergamot too or something?
I wouldn't be worried about
Okay.
that.
All right,
I mean, you can bring Bergman in, but I wouldn't do it based on worrying about Quick Trips.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, never mind. Next time after the policy's done.
Yep.
Thanks, Eric. Item 15, Village Board may adjourn into closed session during the meeting pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Paren 1, Paren E, to discuss the village's position in negotiating a separation agreement with a village employee.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, roll call vote.
Yep.
Boudreaux,
Yep.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Poole,
Yes.
Grenier,
Yes.
Bollig,
Yes.
Fred Howard.
Yes.
And we'll stay in here.
Okay.
So you gotta take the next stuff.